Hi, I'm Ray Poynter, the founder of NewMR and ResearchWise AI, and I'm going to be talking to you about the impact of AI on research and insights. So here's my agenda. We're going to start with a little bit of a look at why things are changing so fast, and the key ways that AI is being used, some issues and potential problems, and then I'm going to look forward over the next 18 months and share some thoughts about what I think the key skills are. So it's been just 3 years since ChatGPT was launched to the public, and it has made an enormous change. There's been a flood of new developments. We're now talking Perplexity, Gemini, DeepSeek, so many different models. They keep rolling out new versions almost every week, it seems. This is creating extraordinary levels of change in research and insights. I've been in this industry since the 1970s, and I can tell you that these changes are faster than the ones we saw created by telephone, by computers, by the internet, social media, and mobile phones. This is another order of change. So we're seeing AI being adopted throughout the research and insight sector. When we look at large organizations, we see that it's probably being adopted faster in market research than it is in other parts of the organization. So global companies like Reckitt, like Heineken, are putting members of the insight team at the heart of their marketing and commercial transformation, because they're not looking to just use AI, they're looking to get a transformation in the way they do business. So let's look at how AI is being developed and the issues that it creates. So I'm going to show you a global study taken in August. And most of the people who took part in the study were research buyers, so client organizations, or research suppliers, market research agencies. Most of the data comes from USA, Canada, from Europe, a reasonable chunk from Asia Pacific. So what platforms are people using? So the leading one clearly is ChatGPT. This is the same as across the whole of industry, across lots of other sectors, public and private. ChatGPT has got a big lead, and we see this is also true in the research world. Microsoft Copilot, it's leveraging all of those Office 365 installations. It's doing pretty well. Google's Gemini, it's leveraging Google's strength. It is doing pretty well as well. What sort of things are people doing? And these are the most common activities that people told us they were doing. They're using it for writing emails, blogs, and reports. They're using it as an AI chatbot. If they want to find out information, they're asking Gemini, asking ChatGPT, find things out. They're using it for qualitative research, mostly for analysing qualitative research, but also for designing discussion guides and also for conversational research where the bot interviews people. We're seeing people use this as a research assistant where they're asking it to help generate questionnaires and these sorts of things. And we're using it as for quantitative research. So people are using it to analyze data, people are using it to create questionnaires and so on, and reports. Little bit less frequently, people talking about agents, but it's still about half the people in the research industry that I've been talking to are using AI agents. And we are going to see agentification and agentic browsers really revolutionize the way all of us use the internet. Deep research. This is surprisingly low to me. I think most researchers should be using the deep research facilities on platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini at least every week to boost their ability to understand what information is out there in the world and using it internally on their own databases. People are using it for image creation. People are using it for occasionally for vibe coding. Vibe coding is where you use the AI to write code or programs for you. And a small number of people are using it for translation of documents. At first, this surprised me, but of course, Many people don't work internationally. If you only work within one country, you're less likely to need, on a regular basis, in the last month in this case, to translate documents. We also asked the people in this study to describe the impact you think AI will have on insights and research over the next 18 months. And just under half were positive. They said something which the machine interpreted as positive. 15% were neutral. It wasn't really positive or negative. Nearly 1 in 5 were mixed. They saw some positives and some negatives. And a quarter were negative about the future. The sort of things the positive people were saying: a lot more AI in research processes to make things faster and more affordable. I hope a lot more AI to make things better, more nuanced and creative. The sort of negative things people are saying: I think it will drive budgets down as clients believe there will be large efficiencies, but I also think that will lead to worse quality in the longer run. So let's look at the key ways that AI is being used. It's being used, as I mentioned before, as an AI assistant, as a chatbot, checking the facts, summarizing documents, all of those sorts of things. We're also seeing shadow AI. If your company does not give you the right sort of AI tools, a lot of people are using their own AI licenses, subscriptions. That's a real risk in terms of data leaks and security. Secondary research. There is a real growth in the amount of secondary research taking place. People are using deep research and other tools to search their own information, to search the internet, to find the citations and the sources. We're also seeing knowledge management systems like Lucy, Guru, Document 360 being enhanced with AI, and that's making a difference too. We're seeing it being used as a research assistant. So people are using it to help draft briefs, to draft questionnaires, to draft discussion guides, review and check reports and proposals, questionnaires, using it for translation, using it for transcription. And we're seeing people use it, just like they are in every other sector, to streamline their operations. So they're using it to process their emails, to draft emails, look at the way they use spreadsheets, improve planning, improve image and video creation, all sorts of things going on. We're seeing a lot of use by qualitative researchers of AI to help design better exercises, better things to do during the session, to help analyze the data. There are also some new tools, and CoLoop is a really good example of superpowering the way you do your qualitative analysis. Then we're seeing quantitative. We're seeing people uploading their data sets, uploading tables, creating dashboards, creating analyses in the LLMs. But also we're seeing people use the AI assistants built into quantitative tools like Displayer, making the process safer and easier to use. People are using it for story finding and reporting, perhaps creating the final presentations manually from the information they gather, or they're using new tools like Gamma. If you've not seen Gamma yet, I really recommend you have a look at it, or taking the AI tools in products like Canva to produce better outputs. And we're seeing data collection innovation, the main one being conversational research, creating bots that talk to people to collect qualitative information or quantitative information or qualitative information at scale. So interviewing 400 people qualitatively with a bot that asks and probes and moves through that way. Social media listening is being enhanced by using AI at all the stages and by adding in things like co-pilots. The agencies, so the company that used to be Nielsen has a product called Ask Arthur, which is used by tens of thousands of its customers to access data. Ipsos, I think now probably one of the largest of the research agencies, has its Ipsos Facto, enabling AI to be leveraged. Kantar's AI assistant is there for its customers to access tracking data and past results. Clients, I mentioned Heineken and I mentioned Reckitt. These sorts of clients are adopting system-wide company-wide systems that allow people to access all the research they've ever done and to integrate it with other forms, and then use that to generate new ideas, and then use those new ideas to be tested automatically. And we're seeing concept testing being revolutionized with AI. So we get AI automated tests like Zappy, like A-Test. We get virtual testing like Link AI and virtual eye tracking, where the computer estimates what the results would be. And we also see synthetic data being used in concept testing. Synthetic data is perhaps the most high profile, the most discussed, the most contentious of all the AI changes, creating people to answer surveys. Sometimes we augment it, so we've got 800 interviews, we needed 1,000 interviews, we use AI to boost those 800 to behave like 1,000. Or generating entirely synthetic people, generating personas, generating digital twins, so they can respond to qualitative research, quantitative research, and so on. So what are the issues and the potential problems we're facing? The first is getting the wrong answer. So are the prompts we're using correct? We know that AI has bias. It's very Western, it's very white, it's very industrialized. There's all sorts of biases in there. And of course, it generates hallucinations. We've seen so far that if we're looking at things like synthetic data, it tends to lack empathy and it tends to lack originality. And even just dealing with generative systems, market researchers kind of like to get the same answer to the same question every time. And generative systems like the Gemma, like Gemini, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, tend to give you a slightly different answer to the same question each time. Lots of data security issues that we need to get on top of. And disruptions. So there are going to be job losses caused by AI, but even bigger than the actual job losses will be the fear of job losses. And anyway, a lot of people's roles are going to change. One of the issues for everybody involved with AI is, because it's moving so fast, falling behind. You might decide you're going to invest in something, and 6 months later, it's now a free service from Gemini or a free service from Copilot. We need to work in much shorter sprints. We need to be getting up demonstration products in a couple of days, minimum viable products in a couple of weeks to move at this sort of speed. One of the problems with the way a lot of people use AI is it's siloed. So I use it to make my work more efficient, but that doesn't really help my company, my organization. We need scalable changes. That's where agents are really going to make the big difference. And democratization gone wrong. So Zappy is a really good concept testing system. So if we have a product manager in a major corporation testing concepts and ideas with Zappy, it's probably pretty safe. But if we get a chief financial officer going to a startup who's got no background in research and they test their ideas on 100% synthetic data, I think they're walking into trouble. So what else could go wrong? Panel fraud. We know that people are using bots to take surveys. That's making surveys less reliable. I think there are vendors who are selling some systems which they really ought to know don't work properly. Most people are too busy to change. When we tell them they should use an AI system, what we normally say is, run it the old way and run it with the AI, see what the differences are, and evaluate it. We're asking people who are really busy to do a job twice. That's difficult. And how are we going to train people when A, they're really busy, but B, what we're training them on is changing every few months? So my thoughts about what is going to happen over the next 18 months. We're going to see a growth in agentification of research, tasks and roles, more and more agents, more and more complicated. Our role as researchers will be to manage, to direct and check and orchestrate agents. So we're using the right agents, we're checking they're doing the right thing. AI is going to be the operating system of research. We're going to see reports, dashboards, databases increasingly replaced with a large language model front end. We're going to have something that looks like a Gemini or a Copilot or a Perplexity, but is accessing all of our systems and is pulling all of that information through. So AI is the operating system of research. First-party data, the data you collect, the knowledge that's in the heads of your employees and your founders, your past studies, the data you collect for surveys, the data you collect in focus groups. This is going to be the new gold. The big LLMs, the Geminis, ChatGPTs, all of these, they have read nearly all of the public data that exists in the world. What they need now is more first-party data. That is where specialization is going to come. More research is going to be conducted in the future. It's going to be conducted much faster. It's going to be much cheaper, and it's going to require fewer people to do it. So, what are the key skills that you should be building to thrive with AI? Understanding business and people. This actually has been the best key skill for years. For example, understand consumers who are different from the people running the business and different from you. Probably none of you are 75-year-old with limited economic means. How are we going to design products for them? How are we going to evaluate what works really well for them? We need research for those sorts of things. We need it for people in different parts of the world with different circumstances. And in terms of understanding your clients, stakeholders, how much quality accuracy should the client trade off this time for speed? You need to know the breadth of options and models that can be used to solve questions. For example, is it a qual or quant problem or both? That is still going to be your responsibility. Understanding the limitations of models and data. For example, to what extent does purchase likelihood, when we ask people to predict their purchase likelihood, how likely is it to predict behavior? Why do people tend to pick the middle price product? Why do they buy gym memberships when the statistics say they won't regularly attend? These sorts of things help you be a better researcher. And then you need to be able to orchestrate people and agents to get the right job done. And you need the human skills to understand what stakeholders really want and have the ability to advocate for the right solution when you find it. You shouldn't just hand over solutions and findings. You should advocate for the right outcome from those. And you need the skills to be able to do that. I look forward to any questions or comments you might have.